Hello, our warrior friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Invisible Diaries.
We're your hosts,
I'm Misty,
and I'm Amber.
and today we are discussing the coronavirus. This is episode 19. We're all cooped up. We both thought this would be a great topic. As always, a quick disclaimer, any information discussed in this podcast is strictly our opinion and for informational purposes only. It is not meant as medical advice and it should not be taken that way. Always consult with your doctor or medical team.
We know battling chronic illness can be hard, and if you find yourself or someone you love in crisis and need someone to talk to, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, Lifeline, at 1-800-273-TALK, which provides free and confidential support in the US 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, that number is 1-800-273-TALK. If you prefer to text instead, you can access help by texting the crisis text line at 741-741, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, that number is 741-741. Now let's get started.
Yay, I can't believe how crazy the world is right now.
The world is definitely crazy. And you guys, before we get started talking about this, Misty and I just want you to know how much we're sending you gentle virtual hugs, because we know it's really stressful on a normal day for spoonies and people with chronic illness. So just know that, we're thinking about you guys a ton, because, there's no manual for this at all. And everybody is definitely not handling it the same way. So
yeah, it's definitely interesting because, well, none of us have ever seen this in our lifetime. It's like something you see in the movies that you never think would actually happen. And I know a lot of us being with chronic illness, invisible illnesses, somewhat are used to the isolation. As you can see on our Instagram, we have a couple of funny posts related to that. So for some of us, we're a little bit used to it, but at the same time, like, this is still something to adjust to. And so we're hoping that today we can give a few tips, advice, and also remind you that you can always reach out to us on Instagram. And yeah, so this is crazy and we're all in this together.
Yeah, we posted about it the other day, but I definitely think we have a unique opportunity right now as people that are advocates anyway for our own health. Because when things die down and we come out on the other side, because we will, eventually we'll get a handle on it, whatever they end up doing. But we just need to remind people, hand washing and isolating when you're, not feeling well still protects those of us that are vulnerable when everything goes back to normal. So I think that advocating for that and continuing that train of thought in education will be helpful for us in the long run. I know this is devastating for a lot of people, but it's also devastating, when the world's not in pandemic, if someone goes out when they're sick and gets someone who has a chronic illness ill. So,
and for me, I feel like, I don't know if this is terrible to say or not, but in a way, I feel like this horrible thing that's going on in our world right now, in a way, is hopefully going to help us out, our community out in the long run, because for the first time ever, people are worried about getting people like us sick. Right. And I hope that, we can somehow learn from this, that, other people matter. I know that before coronavirus, people would cough near me and I would be nervous about being exposed and the risk and what could happen. And that's just like normal life. And I'm sure most people can relate, or at least most people in our community with underlying conditions who are immunocompromised or have an invisible illness or any health conditions. So, a lot of people in the past, recent past anyway, pre-coronavirus, were not considered of that. And people would come into the salon with their child who had strep throat, sitting 2 feet away from me, or they would they would come to school. This one girl in my class, like, literally coughs behind me every day for like the first month of class. So I am hoping that this moving forward, once this all settles down, that people will be more aware of that, and maybe they won't be so inconsiderate. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. I think I think the majority of the healthy population, pushes through illness a lot of times. So it's like, oh, it's just a summer cold, or, so it's fine that I go to work, because I can't miss work. And I know this is a sensitive subject for a lot of people because a lot of people cannot miss work. But I think this is a good example of showing a short amount of sacrifice for a better solution long term. So it's like, I know and it'll probably be even divided in our community, but a lot of people, you know, with self-isolation and whether we should be on total lockdown. And I mean, obviously here, Misty and I are both in Florida, and which has made national and world news because there's still a ton of young people out on the beach. And I mean, in our local county, they haven't closed the beach. They just kind of made it a little more difficult to get to the beach. But I mean, there's still people out. And so, you have to wonder to yourself, there's always going to be a group that thinks this doesn't apply. And we're not talking to that group because I don't know that there's any change. But for people that are choosing to self-isolate now that aren't under a mandated isolation, I think that's the group that we want to talk to. That's the group that we want to, commend and educate, because they're willing to listen, because they're saying, hey, I get it. This might not affect me directly. I might be asymptomatic, but I understand that my actions actually will affect someone else. And that's important with advocacy and bringing awareness, because it isn't just about, we all have to do our part. Just like when we're talking about taking care of the planet, everybody has to do their part. So
Absolutely. And as far as Florida goes, so I don't even know what today is anymore. Today is Tuesday, March 24th. So as far as Florida goes, I do work in the salon occasionally. And even just today, my shear sharpener guy was like gonna bring my shears by because they're sharpened. And he was like, hey, are you in today? I'm like, what the heck? Like, are people in today? Because if you think about it, we're supposed to be 6 feet apart. You can't do somebody's hair 6 feet apart. I can't be
right.
doing that. So to me, it was kind of a little bit baffling that, he's able to work right now, and he's a nice guy. Hopefully he's not listening to this. Probably not. But I just can't wrap my head around why people are taking clients, or why people need to go get their hair done right now. Just stay home.
Right. Well, and I mean, I take a lot of heat. I don't know about you, Misty, but I take a lot of heat as a parent. I mean, my child has autoimmune disease, which, yours also. So it's like, for me, when my son isn't feeling well, the minute he tells me he's not feeling well, he's home, and I've gone round and round with administrators at school, because I'm like, he's more compromised when he's not feeling well. And if he's exposed to something bigger because someone else went to school, then he's really knocked out. And B, I just feel like, you have to pause and you have to do what's right for your body. And so, he misses a lot of school, and he has a chronic health form, and, we've fought for that. But I feel like that's how we do our part also, and not, harming other people. Because of course there's kids that are in school that are, undergoing chemo, and you don't know. I mean, people don't walk around with a shirt that says everything that's going on with them. So,
which maybe we should. Maybe we need to start wearing the shirts like, please consider my health, which we will add to our store, by the way.
Well, I don't know about you, but even last week before restrictions got tighter, the pollen in Florida right now is horrific. And for me, it's like, I'm so symptomatic, like it sets off my mast cell, like it's awful. And I'm like, this is a time that I would be wearing my mask anyway when I'm outside walking the dog or going into stores, because the number one reason is that it helps me not touch my face. So when I touch the car handle to get into the car, and then it's got pollen on it, and I touch my face, because obviously then your nose is itchy or your eyes are itchy, I will break out in like massive hives. Wow. So wearing my mask keeps me from touching my face. And so I find myself being really self-conscious because I'm like, now of course you're scared to wear it because, with it not being a mandate that everyone, stay home here where we're at right now. there's still people out and about, and of course they look at you if you cough or anything else. So it's a little bit, I don't know for you, but for me, it's been like, it's something I wouldn't have even really thought about before, but now I feel super self-conscious. I mean, I still
Well,
wear it, but
definitely. But I think for us, people in our community anyway, we've already owned these masks. So when it was like time, I guess all of a sudden they had sold out, which I wasn't aware of. I just had people reaching out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, Missy, you wear those masks? I see them sometimes. Where did you get it? Because I can't find any. And I'm like, well, I'll go to find the link and I'm like, oh, they're sold out. Like,
yeah,
good thing I
yeah,
have some. But I feel like some of us anyway, we've kind of been prepared for a situation like this for quite a while because it's kind of like our everyday life.
right.
I've had to travel a lot lately. We had a family vacation where we all went to Austin in December. I made everybody wear masks, which, rumors have it that this has been going on for a long time. So unbeknownst to us, we could have, who knows, been on a plane that may have had the coronavirus because they're claiming it was going on since November, which I don't know if that's true. And then January, February, and March, I flew to Springfield, Missouri. So, I mean, that's once a month, basically, in the last 4 months that I've been on an airplane. But I have my system. So I take zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, high doses of vitamin C. I make sure to drink warm tea. I stay hydrated. I take all my vitamins. I
You
practice
eat a
good
lot of
hygiene.
food that's full of prebiotic and probiotic properties
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
I try to stay healthy in that way because I know if I do eat things that are gonna trigger a flare, then I know I'm gonna be weak and more susceptible. Same thing with stress. I try to like find balance or self-care so that I can um, again keep my immune system up. So if I feel like I'm not sleeping well, I make sure to find the time to where I can catch up on sleep at some point. So I've always kind of been very aware of my situation, and I've learned over time through trial and error how to protect myself and keep myself strong. So like when this thing comes along, of course I'm scared, I'm anxious because it would be catastrophic if I were to get this. But at the same time, this is how I live my everyday life, kind of keeping myself prepared. And so I imagine a lot of people in our group, in our community, are probably kind of similar with they have their masks and they have their routine and how they protect themselves. So it's really interesting to see the rest of the world kind of in our shoes right now where they um, are like they're worried and they're trying to protect themselves, even like the healthy people, and um, so that's why we made that one post where it was like, welcome to our life.
Right.
It's just interesting to see people in our shoes. And so that's why I was saying at the end of the day, I really hope that this could be like a little bit of awareness and change that we really could all use and benefit from.
100%. And I know a lot of people are getting upset, with humor, memes that they're seeing around. And I understand it's not a situation to take lightly. And but I also believe in laughter being a great boost for your immune system. I mean, we know that that's true. So I think that there's a balance between, having respect for the severity of the situation, but also making sure that you're taking care of yourself. However, like Misty said, that looks for you, whether that's getting more sleep or, popping in a movie that will make you laugh and put you in a bit of a better state of mind, reaching out to your counselor, since thankfully we have telemedicine now and we can do that. And making sure that you're checking in, with yourself, where you're at, and making sure you're letting your loved ones know too. I mean, I had to sit my husband and my son down and let them know that, my anxiety is much higher than it normally is. And that of course has a cascade of symptoms that it sets off. And so if I was trying to just battle it by myself, and I realized I was needing a lifeline. So I sat them down and explained to them how I was feeling. And, it helped to be able to talk about it rather than just kind of push through. So, just
Yeah,
make
that's
sure you guys
smart.
are doing that.
That's definitely smart because I know there's definitely been a couple times where I feel like, oh my God, am I going to have like an actual panic attack? Because I'll just like, it's mostly like at night, I'll just like let my brain wander and just think about like, oh my gosh, what if I got this? And then I just kind of get lost in this abyss of what if,
What if?
like, like, I don't know, alternate reality type situation. Then I kind of like have to be like, okay, this isn't happening. Hopefully it won't happen. I can't like let my thoughts get the best of me. So it can definitely be anxious, or anxiety provoking for a lot of us, because it is really scary. And there's been times where I felt tired and a little bit of pressure in my chest or my throat was dry and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then you just kind of go down that like rabbit hole of fear. But it's important to um, just try to stay healthy, really. But I did want to read a little small blurb. But I wrote a blog post the other day, and just kind of remind me of like the grief of this that I think some people may or may not realize. The beautiful part of this scary mess is that oftentimes during a disaster, people do come together, in this case, distantly or even virtually. The stages of grief apply to a pandemic. People are initially shocked and in denial. Then people become angry, whether it's over the empty shelves, the media, or the behavior of others. They get angry. Next, we begin to realize the inevitable and reality of the situation, and bargaining takes place. Depression may follow as many lose their income and their daily routines fall apart. Acceptance, the most important for a clear mind, is when we finally prepare and consider others.
Beautifully
So.
said.
So
very,
what
very
are
true.
you doing to have like a routine, keep yourself busy and sane while being locked away in quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm still, I mean, obviously, we've talked about it lots of times on this platform and our actual, other platforms. I'm a planner. That's the way I maintain a sense of control in my out of control world sometimes. So, Misty and I were chatting, and for me, I'm going to set myself some smaller goals. Obviously, we moved some exercise equipment back in our apartment so that we can exercise inside. But I'm trying to take more breaks to get fresh air, to walk the dog, and just make sure that I'm staying away from everyone. And I'm planning my day out in my planner. So getting up, getting dressed, and just sitting down and giving my day intention, that's helping me at least stay focused. Because otherwise it's, I flip on the news and then I get overwhelmed. And I want to stay informed, but not overwhelmed. So
yeah, I've been trying to keep the news on only at night, because I'm like, okay, it's at the end of the day, whatever new things came about or information, whatever, we'll get like the end of day update, and then we'll turn it off. Because at first it was like on 24/7, like, this is crazy.
yeah,
So just
too much.
at nighttime for like an hour or so, just like running kind of in the background so I can glance over and see like what else has been established, or I'll check on like AP news, and just as those alerts come in, just kind of to see. But locally, I'll keep the news on at night for a little bit, just trying not to be so wrapped up into that. Like if you have the news on like 24/7 in your home, it's probably going to be a little bit more of a tense environment than is necessary. So you'll get your information, you're not going to miss anything too crazy, you'll hear about it later. So I would just suggest limiting it to a smaller time.
Yeah, I unfollowed. I'm applying what I do for hurricanes. For us here in Florida, this feels a little bit like that. Obviously the severity of this is massive, but living in Florida, when we know something's coming, we prepare and we get, things set in place, to prepare to hunker down. And so I'm a little bit in that mindset, but it's almost like, I don't know if you feel this way, the anxiety, at least with like hurricanes, we're getting updates and it's coming closer and closer. And even if it's at that last moment it turns, there's still I guess, an end in sight, whereas this feels like
Mm.
it's just a lot of anticipation and a lot of anticipation and a lot of
Yeah,
anticipation.
that's a good point to bring up, that because for those who aren't in Florida, um, we basically every summer, I think it's like from June to now they extend it to November, we have hurricane season. And usually about once a year, we have like a real threat where everyone's rushing, the gas is gone and the water and the bread, all
Water
those
and
things go. Not toilet paper, that's usually in stock, but the pandemonium sets in and the panic and people are freaking out, and they also call the hype BS, and some people take it seriously, some people don't, some people throw parties, other, they board up. So everyone handles it differently, but yeah, every year we have pretty much similar to what's going on in a way, where we are stocking our food and water and we're getting prepared for something that could be terrible. So in a way, it's kind of funny just to be like, welcome, rest of the world, to what we have, but at
right.
least you have AC.
Right.
um,
And water and power.
but what you were saying, though, makes sense, because at least with a hurricane, we know it's going to pass at a certain point. You usually have that like 5-day window. You watch it, sometimes you may be affected, hopefully not, but sometimes it'll just kind of graze by, and you're good. And now you just have a bunch of extra food, and the next day people take their boards down, the sun is shining, they mow their lawn, and back to reality. But in contrast with this, we have this global pandemic going on, and the peak of it is unknown, really, because um, everyone talks about, like, which I thought was kind of interesting and funny in the beginning. People are like, oh, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And I'm like, this is not going to be 2 weeks. If you think about it, say somebody did have it for 2 weeks, and then halfway through that somebody else had it, that their 2 weeks start, the 2 weeks ends up being months if you think about
Right.
it.
Right.
I anticipate this going on until the end of summer, realistically. So
Well, and like you
um,
say, it's gonna matter because not everybody here in the US, I know we have a lot of listeners overseas that are already on mandated lockdown. We don't even, it varies county by county or municipal by municipal here, or township, however you want to word it. Um, so like, whereas we're seeing a lot of places like in England, like they're on lockdown, Spain lockdown, Italy lockdown, like China lockdown, South Korea, like here, even individual states, some states are on lockdown, some cities are on lockdown, but it's not the same. And we still have people traveling in and out of our state. So I have a very good friend who's a respiratory therapist here at one of our larger hospitals. And, she, being in the medical field, was very, prepared, but also very, very business about it. And she's like, she finally went back into work earlier this week. And she goes, I was not prepared to see that amount. She goes, because the news is downplaying it a lot here in our county. And she's like, it's interesting because you get your information from the news and then you realize firsthand, it doesn't always match up. And she's like, she knows that I'm at a higher risk. And so she called me just to say, she's like, look, I know we're not mandated to self-isolate, we're just supposed to practice social distancing. She's like, but you need to stay home because it's definitely here, and it's definitely, whatever we're seeing, whether, because with being respiratory, obviously it is flu season and there's other stuff going on. But I mean, it startled me because I was like, okay, well, that's a little alarming, because you depend on your news to deliver accurate,
it's
you know,
true. Yeah, I have a lot of I have a nurse friend who's in Omaha. I have family who are nurses and doctors a lot in Springfield, in Missouri. So, and then some here. And yeah, it's definitely, you know, we are seeing on the news, I feel like doesn't quite match up, because if you think about it, they only have X amount of tests and they don't want to waste those resources. So there's a lot of people, I even know people personally, like a friend of mine who had to go to the ER at like 3 a.m. because she couldn't breathe, and they didn't test her. They
Right.
just, here's some, meds, go home, which I mean, I understand whatever their system is, but at the same time, I feel like these numbers are so skewed, and that's what kind of makes it scary is that, with something like this isn't something that, you know, everyone is necessarily prepared for. So as time goes on, they're implementing protocol and they're developing tests and they're kind of going with the flow, and which is great, and they're like the heroes and the soldiers right now. But, also what's scary too is that, they're low on supplies. So like when you go, the hospitals, people are like patients and people are just stealing everything off their carts. So like they don't even have masks to protect themselves. Um, and then they have to worry about going home and exposing their family. So it's a really scary time, but it's also scary too because um, of people that are getting turned away. And then also, as I always like to bring up, universal health care.
Yeah.
I have
Absolutely.
seen some people's stories where money was questioned and whether they could afford, being treated. And I know, like, technically, like, legally, you can't turn patients away. Um, but, that's another thing that I hope comes from all of this is that people realize that it's not fair and that it's important that everyone can be treated equally, whether you're rich or poor. It's not fair that rich people and celebrities can get tested, but yet if you're poor or uninsured, that you can't, unless you're
Right.
meeting a certain criteria, which one of the criteria, which is total BS, is if you've been exposed, like
Right.
knowingly. And so that is like a BS question because how can you know if you've been exposed? Like you don't
Well, this,
know the person at the grocery store that just like flew in from wherever,
right.
So
Well, and
because
that's
a lot
the,
of people can't answer that, then
yeah.
they're like, next.
Right. Well, and that's the interesting thing about this particular virus is that, we don't have herd immunity yet for it. It is brand new. So, like, even what Misty was saying earlier is that those of us that are immunocompromised, it's going to matter for a long time because, until they figure out a vaccine, until they figure out, that the majority of people are doing okay, that, we're going to have to worry about being exposed to it because we've never had it before. So, and I know that they say that's why that, with the kids right now that they're a little bit more, a little less susceptible because of the fact that a lot of that chronic rhinitis and runny, we call it kennel cough here in the US, where it's like daycare cough, where it's like
Yeah.
no matter what, just up to a certain age, they just have, green snotty noses and, yuck, that it is a form of a coronavirus. I heard that the other day. I don't know how accurate that is. I was going to look it up, but so it seems like because their body's used to fighting forms of that they're doing a little bit better. But I'm like, it's kind of like it's that same scenario with why kids get sick. They're building their immune systems because they're being exposed to things they've never been exposed to, whereas our immune systems have a better memory. We've been exposed to things, for as long as we've been on the planet. But this we haven't been exposed to yet. It's a completely new strain, which is why, it's scary in the sense of, the demand of health services not being able to meet, the demand of needing those health services. So I know that there's going to be a time when it's less scary, but it's still going to be scary for those of us that are immunocompromised because it's still going to be circulating for a while, if that makes sense.
Right. That's what I was saying. This is going to be going on, I feel like, until the summer. There's no way that the whole world is just going to get over this in 2 weeks. I mean, it's already been 2 weeks or
Right.
longer for some, depending on when the 2 weeks was mandated or whatever. But, and that's what I was kind of finding interesting in the beginning when people were saying, oh, we'll just be closed for 2 weeks or we'll be out, for 2 weeks. And I'm like, that's not going to work out.
Yeah.
I know that for me, though, I really thrive on having a schedule and a routine. So, and And for my mental health, I like to stay busy. So if I just kind of sit around all day and I'm like, I don't know what to do, or I don't have anything to motivate me, I don't want to just like fall into like a mental slump. So I just kind of went online and I created like a schedule. It's from 6 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. But it's just kind of like my daily, like to try to keep me on track. So like I have like ideally I like to have breakfast at this time. Whatever phone calls I need to make either to doctors or whatever kind of taking care of business stuff we have to do as running a household or whatever. Then I schedule time in the morning for me to write. I scheduled like a block for if I can work, which technically that's not happening, which is like work from home type of thing. Then I schedule like around 11:30 to clean, which is kind of therapeutic and helps. And then keeping like up to date on the chores, which are more frequent now that everybody's home. Then I have like lunch, and then I have a time for projects. The projects can be, say I've always wanted to make candles. Okay, let's make candles today, or whatever project. Like I even have like colored pencils. I was gonna draw some stuff for A&P. Hopefully that could help me study, and then and then I have like walking the dog and dinner, and when to try to work out and shower. So it's just like a general guideline for me to kind of keep me on track from just like watching Netflix all day.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a perfect time, we've talked about it on previous episodes, when you are kind of stuck at home, for some people, all you can do is watch Netflix, and that's fine. We're not judging that by any stretch of the means, because we've all been there, especially in the middle of a flare. And obviously, stress is a huge trigger for flares for a lot of people. So no judgment at all if all you're doing is Netflix. But I find for my dysautonomia and my POTS, it's worse if I sit for long periods of time. So if I can get my body moving, whether it's cleaning the house or taking more, I have my watch go off to remind me to get up if I'm working at the computer. But I think, time blocking is so brilliant. And I love what you did with printing that out, Misty, because I think it's super smart. Kind of just go back to basics of like, okay, I know I'm going to be home. I mean, the kids are out of school here. I know in some states they're canceled for the whole year, but here in Florida, they're out for another 2 weeks. So, it's nice to be able to keep everyone on some sort of, schedule, just for some sense of normalcy.
Yeah. And it's also good to take advantage of this time to, like I said, just do the things that you never have time to do.
Check back in with your goals list. Like we had set goals, earlier in the year.
For the Invisible Diaries.
Yeah. So we've got some exciting things, we're wanting to do for you guys too. So, we're taking advantage of this time too, just to kind of recenter and refocus and check in and figure out. I mean, it doesn't have to be these crazy massive goals, but if you have a little bit more time forced right now, that you can, focus it.
Yeah, we actually, in May will be our 1-year anniversary for the Invisible Diaries. So our goal was in May to kind of start a couple of new projects and kind of like take things to the next level. But since I basically am not working at all, and I know your schedule's limited now as well, we just decided like, hey, let's just start getting the ball rolling, early. And, even just like spending time with family. Like we played board games the other night. That was fun. Kind of get the kids out of their rooms, away from the video games and FaceTime. And, it's so, as stressful as this can be, it's important to try to focus on different aspects of it that can be a little bit more uplifting and help to stay in a healthy mind frame.
Yeah. And if you can't, you guys know, reach out, DM us, reach out to your counselor, whatever it is that you need to do. If you're finding that you're in that weird funk and you just can't kind of get out of it, reach out, lean on each other, because it's not the time. It's already hard enough, when we're feeling isolated, and then you self-isolate on top of that even more. So, there is no shame in asking for help or just saying, hey, I'm really struggling or I'm having a tough time, and let's see if we can, help each other.
Absolutely. So I think
you had a great idea, right? That we maybe wanted to kind of throw out there about getting
remember.
everybody together.
Oh yes, good call, good call. I was about to wrap things up. Yes, we haven't picked a day or a time yet, but if you keep like watch our Instagram stories and our Facebook and stuff, we have decided to do like a virtual hangout. Maybe we'll do it like towards the end of the week on like Thursday or Friday. We'll figure out those details
Logistics,
shortly.
Yeah.
But we thought we could do, basically we can send a link to you and you click it and you join. And if you wear like your headphones and you have like video on your phone or iPad or computer or whatever is easier, we could all virtually hang out and just talk about whatever, meet each other. I thought like that would be really fun. And the way we do our like recordings for this, it's like a video conference, and I think I can have like up to 100 people in here, which would be crazy, but I'm sure our first one will be less. But we thought we're gonna give that a shot and see, meet some of you guys. You can meet us. We can talk, ask questions, hang out.
Have a little Q&A.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for taking the time to listen, and we ask that you give us a 5-star review so that our other spoonies can find our podcast. You can visit us on the web at theinvisibleidiaries.com or find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at The Invisible Diaries. And then, like we've been saying, feel free to message us or request upcoming podcast topics. We are always here for our community, shedding light on invisible illnesses.
Yes, and you guys stay safe and continue to just help each other from a distance.
Yes. And keep an eye out for when we post our hangout time.
Yep, absolutely. Take care, guys.
Bye.